no story beyond Tom Clarke is the most common white guy lawyer name in the world. And when I started doing stand-up comedy and writing, I needed to be Googleable. I did a lot of speaking and debating. I did a lot of performing. I was a bit of a drama kid. And I played every sport under the sun. I played rugby league, I played cricket, I played basketball. I kept my parents running around for sure. Yeah, grew up in Helensburgh, briefly lived in Denmark for university, and then moved to Sydney for a year. Can't say I'm a huge fan. And then Melbourne for 7 years, and then we spent a year in 2023 driving around Australia in a camper van, and now full circle back to Helensburgh. Yeah. Stand-up's the easiest one out of all of them. Podcasting takes lots of research, and law takes lots of concentration and dealing with people who need lawyers, which tends not to be particularly pleasant. But stand-up comes real natural. Stand-up's fun. The business of comedy is complicated, trying to get jobs and get gigs and get paid. But the actual performance of stand-up is that's the best time. No, my brain is overflowing with pop culture, trivia, and absurdities, and that is my collection. And I mean, part of writing my book was just a desperate attempt to clear out the clutter in my brain. I used to think about my shortlist for the Hottest 100 for 360 days of the year. I'd give myself a week's break, and then I would start listening to new music, and it would be like, well, this is this January, let's do it. We're starting to think about the next one. But in general, I am absolutely obsessed with music history, pop history, rock history. Growing up listening to my dad's records, I got pretty automatically into way into AC/DC, way into David Bowie. And then when I got older and had access to Spotify and stuff, I would just do absurd deep dives. Okay, I'm going to listen to every David Bowie album in order, and over the course of a week. And so I would just, that was all, you're at university, you don't have a lot of responsibilities. Theoretically, you're supposed to be studying. And so I would just be I would just binge listen the stuff that I was interested in. I listened to the 4 Smiths albums in a day the first time I listened to them through. I mean, I used to be head legal counsel at Basketball Australia. So that was a cool job. It was an interesting job during COVID when they cancelled an Olympics for the first time since World War II. But it's a job that, if you've got enough passion for it, can be really cool, and was really cool. I love basketball. I played all the way through growing up. I wasn't any good because I didn't grow to 6 foot until I was 17. So I was just a little pocket rocket of a point guard, just doing my best. But I loved it, and I still love it, and I watch as much NBA as I kind of can within the realms of having a job and a life and a 5-year-old. But yeah, I love it. It's my favorite sport by now. These days I answer writer and comedian first. It took me a long time to stop answering lawyer immediately because, when you're working full time and comedy is barely even a side hustle, it's a hobby that you occasionally get paid for. But eventually it just, as the book started to look like it was going to happen and I started performing at festivals, I was like, this is your job now. So yeah, I say writer and comedian, and I'm a part-time lawyer. That's what I've become. If I ever see the inside of a courtroom, then I've done something wrong. It's so fun to bring your passion to other people and to just be able to, put your passionate opinions into writing and then get people's responses to that. I write for the Sydney Morning Herald as a pop culture columnist, and so I get a lot of feedback from people through that. And it's a really fun place to kind of put those opinions that I've cared about so much. 72-letter word, pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, which is a lung disease found in people who live too close to volcanoes. Geez, you'll never go bald from barbers since I was 5 years old, because I've had extremely thick hair my entire life. You can't perform for 2 people. Yeah, I've learned 4 people is the smallest crowd that you can do. That's because so this was at a festival. I was doing an hour, and I had a few people had not shown up, and so we had just 2 people in the crowd. And I went up to them and I was like, "Look, you guys are the only ones here. Like, I totally understand if, like, I'm happy to perform for you. You know, you guys can pretend like it's a Netflix special, and you can just pretend you're watching me on TV. But like, if you feel uncomfortable, like, that's absolutely fine. You know, you can come another night, I'm here all month, or we'll, organize a refund for you, no worries." And so I went and had a drink while they discussed it, and then I came up to them and they were like, "Yeah, no, we're going to stay." And I went, "Oh, okay." So then I did an hour of comedy for 2 people, and yeah, it's awkward. 4 people's a crowd, 2 people is a date. And it was pretty bonkers to see it, like, to hold it in my hand. Had a decent sense of what the cover was going to look like, but I didn't know what the foil was going to look like, because I wasn't sure how it was going to look shiny. I'd been told there'd be a foil, but I hadn't known how that was going to look, and we'd gone back and forth on covers for so long that I was like a bit nervous. But yeah, holding it was crazy. It felt amazing. So they sent me 1 copy to begin with, just like the first copy that came out. And so yeah, it came in a padded envelope. My wife and I would go to bookstores and we would like try to like suss out what we liked about covers, and we would go and we would just explore the music book section and the pop culture book section, and she would say, like, "One day your book's going to be up there," like well before we had a publishing contract. It was just, we would sort of envision it, and I know she could see it a long time before I could, but it's still pretty crazy to see it. Yeah, it's a long process to try to get a publisher, invested, particularly in, I've learned, non-fiction books that aren't biographies. So I got a lot of feedback that was like, "Look, we really like the book, we like the way you write, but music books don't sell. People just want to listen to the music. If it's not, stories of a Michael Hutchence or a Bon Scott." Album Books publish a lot of music books, and they've published a book about Spectrum, and about music festivals, and Jane Gazzo's book about 90s music, Sound as Ever. So they had this catalogue, and they had the interest, and they were already in the process of publishing Sound as Ever, so there was a bit of crossover there, and they were keen. I had an idea that I would need to do something about the Hottest 100 one day. I had too much in my head about it. I cared too much about it. I cared more than anyone I knew about it, and I am friends with a lot of people who care a lot about the Hottest 100, but I was definitely obsessed, and so I had a belief that I would probably do something with it at some point, and I thought a book might be good, but I didn't know how it would look. And then COVID hit, and my days at work got scaled back, as it did for a lot of people, and so I was only working a couple of days a week, but my son was still in care, and my wife said, "You got days. You've got writing days. Like, all you've ever wanted is more time to write. No excuses." And so I started just basically word vomiting the stuff about the Hottest 100 that I thought was interesting. Just like the connections that I'd made over the years, the facts that I thought were interesting. It was like almost just like a trivia list at some point. And then it sort of started to, trends started to emerge, lines started to come kind of together, and I started to come up with kind of ideas for some of the chapters, and some of them were more kind of factual and a bit more like heavy, and then there were some that were just like stupid and funny, and it started to feel like maybe this kind of approach to the book, these sort of standalone chapters that you could just read and sort of enjoy, and it would be a bit of a nostalgia trip, and there'd be jokes and facts and all this sort of stuff, and it started to feel like, yeah, maybe this is a book. I started writing it in March 2020, and the book launched in October of 23. The book itself was a project that I just needed to finish and see through. And to get it out there, like the fact that no book about the Hottest 100 already existed just felt so crazy to me. And I was definitely starting to feel this like pressure that someone was going to get there first. How could it not exist already? Something for Kate is my favorite band. Has been for a very, very long time. I've seen them play, either Paul on his own or Something for Kate play. I couldn't tell you how many times. But once we kind of had written the book and the publisher was in and we were doing cover designs, we were like, well, wouldn't it be awesome if we could get like some quotes on the front, of musos that had read it. And so we just sort of started cold emailing people, the musos that were in the book, musos we admired. And Paul's agent came back really quite quickly and said, yeah, like send me the manuscript, and I'll get it to Paul. And we were in southern WA at the time. And so we drove somewhere so we could get internet, and sent this manuscript off. And within a weekend, Paul had read the book, came back with a couple of quotes, like options that we could choose. And the front cover had to be finalized that week. And so we sent this quote from Paul Dempsey to the publisher and said, you have to put this on the front, redesign the cover however you need to get this on the front. And so that's the quote that's on the front there. So that was really great that he read it and he loved it, and that he was willing to be on the front cover saying, this is good. I think most people only think about the Hottest 100 in the month before the Hottest 100 when they're voting, and then they listen to the Hottest 100, and then the next day they stop thinking about it. So that seems like a much healthier way to engage with it. Look, I think this most recent countdown, it was the first one in years that I didn't have to like be overly focused on it, and like be trying to predict what was going to happen, because whatever was going to happen was going to affect the book. In like leading into the one where it looked like, the Wiggles were going to make the top 5, I was like, oh, that's just going to affect the book so much to have to like write the Wiggles into this story. And like, it was going to change the like chapter about the covers, and it was going to change the, and so I was like, oh, like, if the Wiggles make the top 5, like the book's just going to, like, I'm going to have to do so much. And then they ended up winning, which changed it even more. And, like heading into the 2022 countdown, I was like, oh man, I have to make so many changes if Flume ends up winning, because right now there's one band that's won it twice. And if Flume wins, I got to change every reference to Powderfinger in the whole friggin' book. So then heading into 2023, I was like, I don't know anything. Like, I haven't listened to new music this year. I've been so like, there are 3,000 songs that have made the Hottest 100, and it's all I've listened to for 3 years. And so I just like sat there and just like listened to music, and I didn't know any of it. And I was like, this is nice, but also maybe I'm aging out of the Hottest 100. But I'm excited for the next one. I'll listen to it, and I will vote every year. But I think I'm probably at the point now where I'm starting to cross that line, where I'm going to learn more music from the Hottest 100 than I'm going to already be expecting. But it's all right. I'm okay with that. I mean, I think one of the most kind of remarkable facts about the Hottest 100 is that Hilltop Hoods came third 3 times and never finished above 3. That feels so wild to me. It feels, as a music listener over the last 20 years, like the Hilltop Hoods must have won the Hottest 100. That just feels so... They chart every single year. They always do so well. To have come third 3 times feels statistically insane. The Drugs Don't Work came 22nd one year, and then the next year or the year after, Ben Harper's cover of The Drugs Don't Work came 22nd. That's statistically bonkers. So I did a bit of a tour. It's kind of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. But, you know, you go into particularly like really small town libraries, you know, you get this really fascinating community of people who, you know, some of them who care really hard about Australian music and care so much about the Hottest 100, and then others who are just like, they just go to every library event. And so like, we would get like, you know, you'd get these like old couples that would come along and they'd come up to me after the gig and they'd be like, we haven't heard of a single band that you spoke about the entire time, but you're a lovely speaker and thank you for coming and talking in our town. And other people would be like, you know, super passionate and they want to like have those debates and engage in those. So it's always been like a good little mix of people. It's been really fun to talk to people and hear their stories about the Hottest 100 and how much it means to them, the songs they remember caring about, their views on what's happened to it. The library talks have kind of been exactly why I wanted to write the book in the first place, you know, to connect with people about the Hottest 100, hear their stories, and, you know, hear people talk about how much they care about the Hottest 100 and how important it was to them growing up and how important it was to them developing their own identity as a music fan. Because it definitely shaped my identity as a music fan. You know, the amount of bands that I discovered through Triple J or then later through the Hottest 100, or you know, like songs that I found in trying to work out, you know, what I was going to vote for or what my friends were voting for. It just, I think it's so important to Australians when they're growing up and listening to music. So one of the talks that we did was in, that I did was in Violet Town in Victoria, a very small town. And it's the town that Killing Heidi came from. And so all these people came to the talk who knew Ella and Jesse as kids. And so they just wanted to like talk about Killing Heidi and talk about how it was like watching them grow up as kids. You know, I mean, they were 14 when they first kind of broke out. And then we came second in the Hottest 100, and I don't even, you know, I think they were like maybe 18 when that happened. So it was really cool to talk to all these people who knew them and knew their parents really well, and just wanted to like chat about these, you know, these stories that they had of these, you know, Australian musicians who made it big. The trip itself was genuinely like life-changing for us. You know, we completely, you know, we lived a life in Melbourne that was very, very fast-paced. My wife and I are both corporate lawyers, and so we were doing, you know, full-time work in the city. Our son would go to daycare every day. He'd spend most of his waking hours in daycare. We just decided to kind of throw it all in and hit the road, rented out our apartment, quit our jobs, and we just got to remember what it is to just have fun and like just think about ourselves and our family and what we wanted to do every day and explore and enjoy life. And you know, we've come back from the trip now and we're trying to keep that spirit as much as we can. You know, we saw so many cool things and we went so many amazing places, and you know, Australia is, I mean, massive, but it's also just like there is so much like diversity in this country and so many just like gorgeous, incredible places. You know, we spent 5 months in Western Australia and we could have spent years exploring, you know, the Ningaloo Reef and Broome and Esperance. Like, it's just, there's so much to see and there are so many amazing people to meet, and spending life in a car, in a house on wheels is just, it was really an incredible experience. Rock is not dead. I mean, for one thing, it depends on what you call rock music, but no, I mean, there are still tons of great rock bands around. There's just, what there isn't is as many great rock venues. That's harder. You know, I'm wearing a Heartaches shirt right now. One of the best rock gigs that I ever went to was seeing the Heartaches at Newtown Social Club. Newtown Social Club doesn't exist anymore. So I think that makes it tougher if you are a rock band where your music translates really well to a live environment. And if you think about how many of those great rock bands of the 70s and 80s got most of their success because they were just awesome on the pub circuit and people wanted to see them all the time, you know? The Angels is like a perfect example of that, right? Like, I like the Angels music. The Angels music, you can definitely listen to it if it comes on in the pub. But the reason that the Angels made it as a band is because people were desperate to see them in pubs, you know? 300-person gigs. Those are like tough to come by now. I hope not. I still listen to albums, you know, the whole way through, but less so, and I'm a music nerd. Look, if there's any evidence that albums are not dead, it would be something like the fact that G-Flip got 7 songs in last year's Hottest 100. Like, 7 songs is not singles, right? Like, that is a massive group of people who listened to Drummer the whole way through and found songs on that album that they wanted more than the singles.
First concert?
The Rolling Stones, 2006 at Olympic Park for the Bigger Bang tour. Yeah. Wow. Living End opened up for them. The first album that meant something to me was International Super Hits by Green Day. It was the first album that I got from Santa that I had actually hoped for. And I remember being in my room singing along to it, reading the lyrics from the book that came in the CD, and I was singing along to Minority, and I let a big F-bomb drop, and then I ran down to my mum to apologize because I was just reading along, I didn't know that it was coming up, and so I shocked myself. If there's an artist that I could go and see where I just like, that I feel like I've missed out on, it's David Bowie. Yeah.
Beatles or Stones?
Stones.
Hendrix or Clapton?
Hendrix.
Hagar or Lee Roth?
Lee Roth.
Frida or Agnetha?
Frida.
Dance floor or seated?
Dance floor.
Fender or Gibson?
Fender.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Beer or something else?
Beer.
MTV or Rage?
Rage.
Vinyl or streaming?
Streaming.
Stairway to Heaven or Bohemian Rhapsody?
Stairway.
It's 1 a.m, you've seen a band, you've had a few drinks, it's almost time to head home. What's your kebab order?
Mixed with chili and garlic.
Where do you see yourself in 5.5 years?
I mean, that's the hell of a question. I don't know. I hope that I'm still writing. I hope I've probably put something else out into the world, and that maybe it doesn't take me as long as the book did. And I hope that my family are following the path that we are trying to do right now, which is just doing stuff that makes us happy and that we're passionate about, and not letting life and the world overwhelm us the way it previously has. You can order Shoulda Been Higher through my website, tomwclarke.com, and I'll get you a signed copy. Hi, I'm Tom W. Clarke, a writer and comedian, and you can find my story at the Australian Rock and Roll Museum.